Okay, so in the last video, I talked a lot on the subject of what I'm going to call teammate awareness and uh, battlefield awareness. So, what we started with would be, teammates peeking windows may actually disadvantage you, blah 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 blah. That's what the last video is for. For this one, I'd like to start with pathing routes on certain maps. And now, I'm not really here to teach you exact routes on every single map because that's not an efficient way of doing things. I want to teach you how to figure them out yourself. So, in this case, Desert Storm's a pretty nice example of pathing because a lot of its routes are very defined. They actually have roads on them in some cases. So, assuming you spawned, in this building somewhere. Well, let's start with the spawn points for a second, actually. So, ghosts on Desert Storm. They could spawn back here. They could spawn in this area, sometimes closer to the hill. Essentially, this half of the map is where they spawn. You don't need to know the exact locations. You can figure that out as you spawn on the maps. It really doesn't matter. Essentially, if I spawn here, I can assume that the enemies are going to be over there or over there, and my teammates are going to be either here or over to my side. It's pretty simple. There are some exceptions and stuff where it may actually be canted, like on this one, the enemies, I may spawn looking this way and the enemies are over here, what have you. That is very minor stuff. You will figure that out quite easily just by looking where your teammates spawned, looking where you spawned, that kind of stuff. Problem solved. So, once you have the spawn point down, assuming you spawned, let's just say where I'm standing at the moment, in most maps, there are 3-ish main paths. So, I'm going to go left, center, and right. That's just kind of how I'll quantify them. Very MOBA-esque in style. On this one, I think you can guess where center is. So we have center. Left is following this road up and going towards that 2-story house. And right is a very barren path that is not frequently used on Desert Storm. You could even argue that the right path is much more common in usage as going through this tunnel and going up, coming around, because the road has absolutely no cover and you really can't do anything on it. So I'll quantify this as the right path, the one where the hill goes through as the center, and the one going through that house as the left. And I will do it all from the perspective of ghosts looking at the phantom spawn, just to keep it simple. So, pathing wise, when you spawn in, you're going to notice that enemies pop up in certain places, and this can give you a good idea of where the enemies are actually spawning. So, if you spawn here, what my brain tells me is that enemies are going to spawn in that building and start peeking there, and spawn in that building and start peeking there, as well as possibly that one. So we have 3 main places that we're going to want to watch. Not all buildings are built equal. Some places are notoriously common for snipers to reside in, which makes sense. I mean, this is honestly something that you can just tell by looking at a map real quick. Of course, there's going to be somebody here. It has height dominance over the rest of the map. You have a nice view down at everything. So your line of sight extends all the way down right into my spawn. You can even see people going way out to the right to flank, stuff like that. Simple. Middle one here, very far back. Again, good sight lines on the things you need to see. If it's King of the Hill, you have a pretty clear shot on the hill. And on the left, you can go up on the roof, or you can stay down by cover, where you have nice thick cover in the shape of the oil drums that block stuff like wall bangs from, a stray bullet. It may miss you, but then it goes through the wall and hits you and hits your teammate, that kind of stuff. So All of these places are rather strong, with the exception of this one, because there is only one place to peek, and the walls are thin. So you can shoot through them with any sort of real caliber weapon in this game, like an AWM, AWP, that kind of stuff. Or, more realistically, a BFG-50, because that's what you're actually going to come against in this game. But, you know, I rest my case. So, the point is, you can tell where people are going to pop up first. And from there, you can tell how to get kills first, and how to get to the people to position yourselves to get more kills from there. So, the things you're going to have to watch early in the game is the common sniper nest. As soon as you spawn, like you spawn right now, right as the game starts, 15:00, you're pressing space and waiting for the cooldown to count down, and then it goes. You're there. The first buildings that you're going to see populated are going to be this one, and this one. And I'm going to kind of include these two buildings because these are both rather strong sniper positions. Both of them have spawn points in and around them and will be populated almost immediately as the game starts. Sniper positions are very laid back from stuff like the hill, and usually are easily accessible from spawn, or are the spawns themselves. So, of all the roles on the battlefield happening, from assaults to snipers, the snipers are going to be the ones that will get into their angle first, because they have the advantages. They have the advantage of spawning in the place that they want to be, which is far from the enemy and behind teammates. So, on those guys, I would say, from my experience, you're going to want to think about the snipers, and on any map, take the sniper houses and kind of make them like a light source. Anywhere there is light, you want to be looking towards it. So if this is a light source, once I'm in the shadows here, all this kind of stuff, I'm fine. But if I cross this barrier, there's light shining from that building, and possibly from this building over here. Even though I'm covered from that one, that's still at least 2 out of 4. That's a dangerous angle to go through. Now, the thing is, there is slop in snipers, to say the least, that crossing a gap like that is very unlikely to get you killed with the tank there and stuff. It's still decent cover. I would do this push every day of the week, because you can jump up and then slide in, and you're pretty well covered from just about all the angles at this point. Didn't even check that one, so you're probably fine, to be entirely honest with you. Realistically, this is the kind of stuff that the game sense and the awareness of the enemies actually come into play. If you know that there is one sniper with a hell of an aim, that's where you want to start, not necessarily walking across open bits of cover and just hoping for inaccuracy, because it may actually get you killed. You cannot do the same things against bad enemies as against good enemies. Walking across open places against bad enemies is sometimes the right thing to do, because it will force them into a stressful situation that they want to shoot at you and maybe not reload. Maybe try for the 10 rounds they have left in their mag to shoot at you with, because they see you're in a vulnerable position and they don't want you getting to their base at, whatever you want, wherever they're camping at, that kind of stuff. You may be able to put yourself at a disadvantage and force them into action because they see it as a golden opportunity. That may not work against a good player, where they have their nerves under control, reload, peek out, and just take you out because you're in a disadvantaged location. Stuff like this changes across matches, and it changes across opponents, actually, primarily. So, back on to the idea of pathing. A lot of times you're going to have middle or center paths be very heavily dominated by snipers. And the flanking routes, so the left and right, and, well, we'll continue with the MOBA theme. The jungles, so very covered areas where you can't get good line of sights from long range, a lot of times are going to be dominated by the PDWs, the LMGs, and the ARs. Especially the PDWs and the ARs, but possibly the LMGs. So, with that in mind, if you are a sniper and you just spawned into the game, you may want to go with a much more central location, because you will have better line of sights on the enemy snipers. And, like I talked about in the last video, if you go to a bit more unconventional of a window. So, this is the best example of a sniping house on my side of the map at the moment. Everyone and their grandmothers go to this house to snipe. That's pretty standard. I mean, everyone's seen them. If you've played on Desert Storm, you've seen a sniper in this house. You've seen a sniper on that rooftop. You've seen snipers the next house over. This one down here. You've seen all that. It's rather common. It is pretty much a law of the universe that somebody's going to be in one of these three houses, as well as that one. So, on this side of the map, the sniper houses are arguably more compressed than on that side, where they're spread out fairly evenly. So, if you take into account that your teammate is very likely peeking this window, and that means there is probably 4 reticles sitting on that window, you may have the brilliant idea of saying, hey, I'm not gonna go sit in that window. And you can do something a little stranger and push forward a bit, jump up on this box, and get a clear shot. So they may be aiming over your head. You can jump up here, pop a shot off, and kaboom. You just got a free kill because they were not expecting you to pop up in the spot you did. Now, if this is King of the Hill, they may be aiming down towards like this corner or something, and it may not work perfectly. I'm not saying this is a strategy that you copy-paste every single time you're on Ghosts. I'm saying it's simply a strategy that you may want to consider doing if you're on Ghosts. It is just one option. But, in general, peeking a less conventional angle, keeping it tight, do not stand in the window either, because then your arms are exposed and you can't see everything. However, if you stay back, then there's a lot less of your body showing. You got a clear shot. You only want what you can see to be able to see you. That is a very basic thing that you need to get into your head. Yes, I know. If I am back this far, I only have this much room to track somebody if they're running. Versus, I have all of this. That's definitely an advantage if you're bad at shooting at people that are moving. You get more time to trace their movement and think about what they're going to do next. But, at the same time, if I'm way out here, I'm exposed to at least 3 of the major 4 snipers' nests. Where if I'm back here, I'm exposed to 1 of them. 2 if I stand in this window. So, 1 of them. It's just a simple game of angles in this case where you gotta watch out. Honestly, there is a chance that somebody up here could see bullets coming out of this window and shoot, in this area to hit you. Unlikely. Wouldn't worry about that possibility at all because most people do not have that kind of game sense. Probably good if you just stay back from the window. Back onto the point that I really want to drive home. Look at the pathing. Look at your loadout. Figure out what you should do. For me personally, if I get the loadout I would actually use on this map, don't copy this. This is just what I use. It's not necessarily the best loadout you'll ever find. So I just spawned in. What I'm going to do is go around here, be jumping to see what is at that house. What's at that house? Both those middle houses. Tight around this. Keep close to the wall. Jump in here. Hop up these stairs. And get some shots off into this house. This is what I will usually do. There's a lot of cover usage and a lot of very aggressive pushes at the same time. And at this point, I like where I am, because the AK is a gun that's really going to be falling off in damage by 200 studs. Yes, I do understand the minimum damage range is not at 200 studs, it is way before that, but realistically, you can get some serious damage output at 120, 150 studs with the AK-47 that you really cannot get at 200 studs because the recoil is too large. Yeah, so, I mean, probably like 3 torsos wide. Spray at that distance. That is not particularly good to do. Not if you're trying to win a peak battle. So, you can see how I progress through the map. This is not a guide about movement either. This is simply pathing. The way I vault over these to gain speed does matter. It does save seconds over time. All that kind of stuff makes a difference. But ultimately, if you do this kind of move, you put yourself in a position to absolutely destroy everyone in this house, because I'm using a armor-piercing AK, as you can tell by the green bullets-ish. Yeah, green bullets. I have every tool in my toolbox. A very early start, a very covered route. The only time you're really exposed is coming across behind the tank and coming up this alley in case an enemy spawns somewhere. They can't spawn here, but if they spawned here and pushed early, there is some time where you are extremely vulnerable. So if I propose a little bit of an alternative to the pathing, I do the same thing. I push up here, but instead of going along here, I can go up. I will be exposed to that sniper house and that one just a little bit, but then I can get cover. And this way, if an enemy came over from that sniper house, I have a very good amount of cover and a very good angle to deal with them. That is the differences in pathing. You want to understand, depending on where people spawn, they may push the places that you're trying to push, and you may have collisions and engagements in the early game that you were not expecting to have. So, you really need to start getting used to the different maps in the game. You need to understand where enemies are likely to push. People love to peek these barriers. They love to peek that window. Actually, especially this window in this bridge area. So that can put a huge damper on my strategy and force me to... one thing that comes to mind is if I see there's a lot of people over there and I can't take them out, if I'm using a shorter range gun like an MP7 or an MP5K, I may not try and fight this at all. If there's an enemy on the bridge and I have an AK-47, that's fine, because I can shoot through that and I can shoot at their head. So I have an entire torso to aim at. But if I have an MP5K, I am not able to hit probably about 60% of their body, and it's at a range where the MP5K does not excel damage-wise anyway. So this is going to be very hard to do with something like a PDW, like an MP5K. Not feasible. AK, totally feasible. C7, Scar L, all of these guns could handle a range like that, whereas a PDW would not. So I can rely on my personal mechanical skill to peek this, take out the enemies, and then push up, and then do my safer pushes. Also, pushing this side, even if it's just a slanted wall, that's still cover from everyone peeking around this corner and out to there. That is a big difference. So understanding that even a slanted wall can in fact be enough cover can make the difference between a successful push and a non-successful one. Keeping this kind of stuff in mind does matter. Now, if I was using a PDW, what I would very likely end up doing, and this strategy also does help for spotting as well, instead of pushing up, spawning here, pushing up along that wall, and then going in through there to get onto that sniper house over in the distance, I may make this jump. And I'm not here to explain movement like I said earlier, but if you just press space and then X immediately after, well, a little bit after, you can get some decent height, and you can pretty easily make this jump. So, now I have a completely unobstructed path, which works for me and against me at the same time. I can walk through here. I see those two sniper houses, get info on the top window and the ledge below it, the little balcony there. I move over here. I have a good angle to peek. I can see and maybe even pick off some of the snipers, and then I can dash down, and I'm in cover almost immediately. And if I know that I did not want to fight these people because I have a PDW, now I am right up in their faces and waiting to just melt them with this PDW. It's those kind of things that I highly recommend thinking about. I cannot force you to do this, but what will happen, what has been my experience at least, I can't truly speak for you, is when I actively understood that there was something I can think about. So thinking about the pathing, like, oh, I never thought of that before. Okay, what is the advantage of this versus going a far right route? All of these different things. Once I realized I could think about those, I started thinking about them. And then once I started thinking about them enough, I stopped thinking about them, and it was just a part of my playstyle. On just about every map, I have a preset route that I do because I find it to be the most effective. I don't think about it anymore. It is not any sort of mental burden. It is what I do that used to be the most effective, and now usually is the most effective for me personally. And I find that most of my routes are pretty optimized, and I can average, I'd say, 80 kills a game with a decent gun. So something like an AK-47 on a, I'd say mid-range, short-range map. Or if it's on a mid to long-range map like Ravid, a Scar L, I can get 70, 90 kills pretty reliably almost every single match. And that is adequate for me. I'm not actively trying to stay there. I would like to push that farther if possible, but, you know, there's only so many spawns in a match, so I shall see about that. Point is, pathing can make a huge difference in your play style. You need to understand where you want to be when you spawn in. As soon as your feet hit the ground and you know what map it is, you want to be thinking about where you actually want to be on that map to suit your weapon. So for me, I know my comfortable spray range with the AK-47 very well. I've got a couple kills on it. I'm pretty used to it at this point. That means I want to be in a place where there is a lot of cover for me and the enemy, because that's where the AK shines. When I'm behind cover and the enemy's behind cover, that means I can hit them and they can't hit me, because the AK-47 with armor piercing has a ton of wall penetration. I can go through like probably 3 of these walls unless I'm dumb and hit the floor. There's 1, there's 2. Okay, so it could go through 2 very decent sized walls. Yeah. So, boom, right through those 2 and into that. So that's 2 pieces of cover that I can go through, that if the enemy has a 5.56 rifle, especially if they attach 223, the lower velocity version of it, or lower damage version of the 5.56 rifle's ammo type, all of these kind of things. Basically, anything that is not another AK-47 or AK or a sniper that already has high bullet penetration, I can shoot them, and their gun will simply get caught up on a barrier. Right through. No problem. Easy. Even that kind of wall. Right through. That is a huge advantage. Because that means... I'm going to see if I can find another... Oh, I got one. This is a very weird move, but it's one I do like to do. So if I got a person in that building right there, I can push up here. Yeah. Okay, let's try this again. If I got a person in that building, I can push up onto this roof and do one of these. I think I can... I don't even know. That may have gone through, that may not have. But the point is, I have a good amount of cover. Okay. Oh my god, game. Please stop. I'm trying to do something here. I can have a very good amount of cover. They peek that window, and they go to the left. Okay, that's fine. I just light up the left side. It's going to go right through, take him out. And hell, it may even hit people coming up the ladder behind him. Doesn't matter, because this is a wall that is way thin to stop an AK round with armor piercing on it. No problem whatsoever. And if I do I think it went through. No, it did not. Okay, whatever. Well, the fact is you can be standing behind these and still get a ton of visibility, and not a lot of visibility when it comes to the enemy seeing you. Fantastic cover. 10 out of 10. Can't wait to make my cover tier list. But, point is, in a case like this, I have a lot of cover, and they think they have a lot of cover, but what they really have in this case is visibility blockage that I can shoot right through, and when dealing with the average sniper player, I can predict them fairly well. So, boom. I get free kills because of the weapon that I chose, because of the path I used to take to get into the optimum range and battlefield setup of that weapon. And that's battlefield management in a nutshell right there. Using the right gun for the right job. Have a path that you want to follow and find a gun that fits it. Have a gun that you want to mess with and find a path that fits it. Do these things in either order you want. If you really just like a certain path, and of course include frags in this as well. Frag grenades are a very powerful tool. Get the timings down on them, stuff like that. Learn how to cook them properly. Hold G and then release. It's a 5-second fuse. It'll explode. I can hit that staircase. Boom. So, on that kind of stuff, you got to figure out what gun you want, what path you want to take, which one is going to determine which in your arsenal and in your play style. Do you have a gun that you just cannot give up? Are you trying to go for the most kills on it? Are you doing whatever? Find a path for it and make sure to stick to that path. The very common high rank play, and there's a very good reason for this, but the common high rank play is to be jumping around on buildings, dodging relentlessly, and honestly, just not being in very good positions at all. Because the fact of the matter is, as soon as you have a mechanical advantage over the enemy team, thought kind of takes a backseat. Because when you can stand on top of a building and get 60 kills a game, why wouldn't you? Well, to that I say, I have decent mechanical skill, and I use my brain, and I can get 90 kills a game, 100 kills. All this kind of stuff in real lobbies against people that are actually good, and I can counter their playstyles. You can have legitimately the best player on the other team, and I can still get a decent enough kill death. I can still get a 4 kill death, a 5 kill death, a 6. Because I learn how to counter their play style along with the regular stuff. I do not do the same thing every time. When there is a good player, you cannot be standing on roofs. That is not how it works. When you are in a 1v1, you really cannot be standing on roofs. It just depends on the guns they're using, you're using, all that kind of stuff. Standing on roofs is a fantastic strategy for quick enemy location. They will start shooting at you, and you will shoot back, and you will take them out because your aim is better than theirs. That is what you are relying on. It's a very basic, a very crude, and a very widespread strategy. Don't be that guy. It is widespread, but it is not the best. It is a very good option for farming as long as you don't want to put too much thought into it and don't want to train your game sense really at all. I can respect that. I've done that. I've been the toxic one who's always standing on the roofs. I get it. I'm not saying that's toxic, but I was toxic and standing on the roofs. It was a twofer. Point is, you can be that person and you will get a decent amount of kills. And you will get better mechanically because of it. I can tell you that for a fact. When you are letting the enemy shoot at you first, you will be forced to react and forced to kill them faster. Whether you do it determines if you get a death or not. If you get a death or a kill, comes down to your mechanics. It's a good way to train it. It's not how I do it. It's not how I'm going to do it. But it is definitely a valid strategy, if rather immature in a certain way. In a game sense way, it is just not a particularly good strategy. I'm not saying you need to sit in corners for 40 minutes. I am still a extremely aggressive player. I just use better than most other extremely aggressive players, because I am not aggressive for the sake of aggressive. I am aggressive for the sake of increasing the number of kills I get in a given period of time, because I want a lot of XP. I average, I think it's around 1200 XP gained per minute in matches. You know, I've tracked it a couple times, and that is because to get the kills with my AK-47, which is my main gun, I do need to be relatively close. So I need good pathing that is fast but also covered enough, because I really am not able to defend myself in long range situations. I cannot really be on this roof and shoot somebody in that window and take them out, or more accurately, somebody on that deck and take them out, because they can hit me and I really can't hit them reliably. It's whatever the gun feels like. I can't do that. I need to get closer. Here, I can win every time. Or if they're peeking the window on that side, I can shoot through it and win just about every time, because they can't even hit me then. It's that kind of stuff that you need to think about more, and then start not thinking about it, because you're doing it subconsciously. Once you get through those stages, well, the two stages being these two different videos at the moment, is, you know, figure out where your teammates are, learn them, learn the pathing and the guns to go with them, or learn the the paths that go with the guns. Whatever way you want to do it, just get those two things into your head at a subconscious level, and you will have much higher success rate at getting kills, getting to objectives, getting to more secure spots to increase kills in relation to deaths. Boom. Deaths are not a big deal either. I just want to, if you're using this to try and get a better kill death, I definitely understand that. It is a lot of fun. Nice. But yeah, you're gonna have to use game sense if you want a really high kill death and are not willing to server hop all the time to find really bad lobbies to do that in. That's what I prefer to do if I'm trying to get a good kill death, is to actually think rather than, you know, just hopping to a lobby that's worse. You know, I get it. I definitely get kill death big, more dopamine. That's fun and all. Having a 98 kill death can be fun in a lobby where you can get it, but it is not making you better, and that's really what I like to actually be doing. So, this was kind of a crash course into pathing, and I'm thinking that I did a pretty decent job in explaining it. Now, a lot of this stuff is really something you may have to sit down and think about for a couple minutes if you want to actually do it right. Think about the maps themselves. Get like a picture of the maps from Google Images and think about it on each map in particular if you're not good at visualizing them in your head. That's totally reasonable to do. I get that. Personally, I substituted that with just playing the game more and more, and I got so familiar with the maps that it doesn't really matter. And, of course, this is one of the simplest maps. This is one of the oldest, and in my opinion, one of the best. Stuff like Metro as well, the subway one, is also extremely simple. I mean, that is the most defined of all the maps. It's either left, center, or right, and then there's jungles. It's not even angled. You spawn in, just waiting to go to the other side through one of the 3 routes. Done. Simple. It's basically set up to have a main battle and flanks. That's it. It's a fantastic map for visualizing that kind of stuff, and this one's pretty good as well. It just has a little bit more cover to work with than that one. So, start thinking. If you need visual representations of them, go to Google Images. I'm sure you can find all the different maps that you need on there. Run through them, or just do it while playing, and just make sure to think about these things just a little bit, and you will notice improvements later on once you have this stuff known like the back of your hand and are doing this all the time without even thinking about it. You're going to be more informed, faster, and just better than most of the people on the battlefield. Maybe even all of them. Who knows in the situation at hand. You, as the most informed person and the best game sense on the battlefield, you can do whatever you want. Do you want to train your aim? Do you want better mechanical skill than everyone else on the battlefield too? Do you not play often enough and just want to think a little bit so that way you can win rather than putting in a bunch of hours into getting better aim? Okay, go for it. Stuff like aim is one tool. Game sense, another tool. All of these things are stuff that you can combine and mix into your playstyle to form it. You need to understand what you're working with. Is your game sense really good? Can you go into the middle of the enemy base and understand where everyone is through the combination of the minimap, noise, kill feed, the distances in the kill feed, that kind of stuff? Can you get a good visual representation in your head of what the battlefield's like and be able to predict the enemy movements from it? If you can do that accurately, while knowing the spawn points and stuff, you can make a very powerful opponent crumble. It doesn't matter, because you know their every move, if you're doing it correctly. And then, you don't need mechanical skill when you can sit on the doorway, wait for them to peek. As soon as you see it, you click on them, and they're done. That's the kind of stuff that insane game sense matters just as much as insane mechanical skill. Obviously, the top people are going to be the ones with both. You cannot have mechanical skill that is so far beyond other people that you can substitute game sense and still be the best. It's not really how it works. I find a lot of people completely forget about game sense in favor of mechanical skill, because they sit on a rooftop and jump around and realize that it gets them kills. That's completely reasonable. That's a valid play style. The fact is, once you get them into a 1v1 scenario or a skirmish, something like this, you're going to notice that they don't have a brain. And that is where you get to kick their ass. Because you can understand who they are, what they are, how they do the things they do, and why they do them. When you understand why somebody's going to do something, that means you understand them. And once you understand them, it's all over. Because you can just do everything to counter them. You can choose the guns you need to choose to counter them. You can throw frags in the right spot. You can do all these things. You can position yourself in ways that they can barely hit you with their skill set. You can do so much with game sense that you gotta understand it is an awesome skill to develop, more so than mechanical aim. That is what matters, is game sense. Just as much. And in a lot of the higher ranked players on this game, you will see a lack of it, which is unfortunate, but as a self-aware person trying to improve at the game, that is putting every single card in your hand to kick their ass and just absolutely become one of the best players on the game. If you're willing to think about it while you are training the mechanical side, and then all of a sudden you realize you're a person who knows the battlefield in and out like nobody else, and has mechanical skill on par and above everybody else, even depending on what you do with it, and then you are one of the best people in the game. It's a long process. It's a involved process, but if you're willing to go through it, you can get some fun games going. So I'd say that's about it for this. Just to recap, pathing. Understand if you're running an AK on this map with armor piercing, in my case, I want enemies and myself to have a lot of cover, because then I can use their cover to block their vision when they go behind it, and then use my gun to shoot through it while I still have the advantage in cover, because they cannot shoot through mine in most cases. And then the pathing, I can get to that efficiently and make sure I am in the comfortable range and zone in relation to cover for my gun to excel, and for me to excel in the same way. So find your gun, find your play style, and then find your pathing and routes that you want to choose from there. And that is pretty much it. Again, it's not me explaining what to do on every path for every gun, because that is insane to try and do. You just need to understand it and then apply it to yourself. Do some mental gymnastics. Figure out the things you need to figure out. And you can do a lot of things with it and will become a better player because of it. So I'd say that's pretty much what I wanted to cover here. I will be doing more stuff in the future. Again, I think I said in the last video, I may do a delving into the actual mechanical side. I'll talk on that for a second here. Aim training is common. Basically, aim trainers are just something that spawn targets that you shoot at. It removes the gameplay aspect, it removes the game sense, it removes the time that you're dead and respawning and getting back to the engagement to train your aim. It isolates the actual reticle onto target aspect that you need to do to improve your aim. That is a lot more boring than gameplay in a lot of cases, but it is also a faster way to improve your mechanical skill than the actual game itself. So, if you want to do mental gymnastics and aim training at the same time, figuring out what the enemies are going to do by predicting them just with a Google image of the map that you're talking about, and are making your aim get trained, I guess, you can do some ridiculous stuff, and you can come back to the game and be a lot better because of it. But aim training in itself, there is a weird divide that I've found between people basically telling you what to do and not necessarily why it works on a biomechanical level or on a really anything. It's just an order. It is do this and you will get better, limited evidence to back it up. And then on the other side, you basically need to be a neuroscientist to understand the actual fine motor control documentation and axons and myelination of nerves, all these different things. You really got to understand a lot to decipher it. So in aim training, I don't have the qualifications to properly explain why stuff works, and I don't like it when people just say what to do without explaining it. I can tell you to use an AWM and to peek the window on the left side of the hill and to always aim there and then aim there and then aim there and then aim there and then do it again. I can tell you to do that, or I can tell you why you may want to do that in this certain situation and tell you how to actually decipher those situations by yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, the latter, because brute force is not efficient. So, in aim training, it's the same thing. I can't properly explain it on a biomechanical level, and I don't want to tell you what to do with no explanation. So, I'm not going to delve into that too much. All I can say is that I do aim train, and I have noticed a difference in scores, but even in mouse feel. I do feel much more comfortable with my mouse than I used to in the span of a couple of months of doing aim training. I do believe it works, but I do not have evidence to back that up, per se, other than my high scores increasing over time on the different scenarios. That is not particularly solid evidence, and I will not be doing too much with that. I really do want to focus on the game sense, because I find I'm a person who can be playing the game and thinking about what I'm doing and what I want to be doing, and I can use that to try and teach at the same time, or to use it later and teach with that. So that is a little bit on the aim training subject, and a lot on the pathing subject that will hopefully help you get better at what you're trying to do, whether it be having more fun or having better kill deaths to have more fun, whatever. Hope it helped.